I'm here with the great, the legendary, the enigmatic Jeremy Saffer to talk about his career, his photos, everything, his legacy. We met this year at Inferno. It was super busy for the both of us. I thought doing it on Zoom afterwards would make a lot more sense, and that's why we're here instead of just sitting in a corner somewhere at the hub, trying to find some peace and quiet so that we could have a conversation. I think this is better.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was not any downtime.
Especially for you. You were busy. So let's talk a little bit about you before we even talk about Inferno. We chatted,
Sure.
so I know a little bit about your background. But for those that don't know, how did you get into photography?
So I started off when I was in bands. I would take pictures of the bands we opened up for because we opened up for some bigger bands. The dude who ran all the shows locally is kind of a legend in the metal and hardcore world, Scott Lee. He saw me taking photos. He's like, "Hey man, why don't you come to all my shows and start shooting them and you can come in for free." So it was kind of a way of, as a fan, getting into shows for free and doing something for it. So every single Sunday there was a show and it was metal or hardcore and it was, Hatebreed, Killswitch, Shadows Fall, Lamb of God, God Forbid, Terror, Walls of Jericho, Throwdown, all that kind of stuff is what I grew up shooting every single Sunday. We were spoiled for sure back then. Um, he worked with a bigger company called Mass Concerts who run, the Palladium in Worcester and a bunch of other shows and venues, including the local Warped Tour and Mayhem Fest and all that. So I became their house photographer as well. And I didn't really know much about photography. I was just shooting to have fun and to go to shows. And my trajectory was to go to Berklee School of Music for music production engineering, which I did. And I ended up hating it. And so when I hit a wall there, I ended up switching over to photography, immediately going on tour because I had the contacts to do that at that time, still knowing nothing about photography other than shooting on auto. And then my parents actually found the school called the Hallmark Institute of Photography, which was in Massachusetts, not far from where I lived. It was a 10-month intensive program where I could jump off tour, go to this program, and jump right back on tour again without missing a beat. And so I did that, learned everything I needed to learn in terms of the foundation of photography, lighting, all that. And then I started doing more photo shoots than concerts. And as the years went on, I started doing, here were concerts, here was photo shoots. It just started naturally doing this over the years. Cause like at the height of shooting concerts and touring, I was doing, 300 shows a year at least. And then when it got to doing, like last year, I think I shot 12 concerts, something like that. But I did, several hundred photo shoots in terms of, doing a festival and doing 20 shoots at a festival kind of thing. And photo shoots throughout the year and all that kind of stuff. So it just kind of shifted. Yeah, and here I am, 20 something years later, tired always, living off caffeine because it's nonstop work, which is fun.
Uh, your career is nothing short of amazing, and you've worked with the cream of the crop, I would say. Is there a band out there that you haven't worked with yet that it's still part of your bucket list?
Yeah, I have a bucket list that constantly ebbs and flows. So like there'll be people on the list that are no longer with us, and unfortunately, you cross them off for that reason, or they break up or whatever else. But every year I tend to get someone from the bucket list to the list of accomplishments. There were definitely a few at Inferno, which was pretty cool, getting to work with bands that don't come to the US. So getting a chance to work with them was really cool. There's a couple, and I don't want to jinx it coming up that I'm really excited about. But I would say the big ones is I have shot various members of Metallica solo. I haven't shot them all together. That's a big one. Black Sabbath or Ozzy doing I've shot them live, which I know not many photographers have, but I have done that, but I haven't done a photo shoot with them. And I don't know that that opportunity will ever exist, but that's up there. Elvira in full. Elvira is definitely on that list. Henry Rollins, who I've also photographed live, but never done a photo shoot with. Like I said, that list kind of ebbs and flows as bands come and go.
Is it
But a
easier?
bit,
I'm assuming it's easier for you now. Like you're an established photographer at this point. Do you still have to chase some bands around, or now you're finding that most of the bands come to you?
So everything's different. Every assignment's different, and every reason for doing a photo shoot's different. And a band won't do a photo shoot unless they're shooting for a specific reason. If it's for them, it's super easy because they want you to do it. If it's for a magazine, they can say yes or no. If it's for something else, they can say yes or no. So it varies. So I still get the no's. They do happen. Um, some bands, younger bands especially, are really specific on the photographers they work with, and they won't work with other photographers. So, like Sleep Token, for example, I shot them live when they were opening up for In This Moment and Nothing More. Now that they're this big arena band, they only work with one photographer. They don't allow photographers to shoot them live except maybe at festivals, and they only do photo shoots with one photographer. They won't work with anyone else. And I'm seeing that more and more with younger bands where they find their one person and they won't work with other photographers. So I'll work with legacy bands, which is fine. I like the bands are established as well, but yeah, every shoot's definitely different. So if you're going up to a band, big or small, it depends on what it's for, if they want to do it, and if they're into shooting with photographers or very protective of their we only work with this one person kind of thing.
That seems a little bit too narrow in my opinion, but I guess I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion and do what they wish. But I think that working with different photographers, it's almost like working with different producers. It also gets you a little bit more of an understanding. And as an artist, you can also grow from that because you're not pigeonholing yourself just to one person.
I agree. But there are some artists who have such a specific vision of what they want to look like in all aspects of their career that they have to completely control it. You see it a lot in the pop world. But even in the pop world, they work with a lot of different photographers, but those photographers have to very much mold what they're doing with that artist to fit that artist's vision, you know?
You mentioned photo shoots, concerts. When it comes to you as a photographer, obviously you're going to take a different approach with both. Which one
hmm
is a little bit more challenging from a technical standpoint?
Um, they both have their challenges, but concert photography is far less challenging because it's like going out in nature and taking a picture of a waterfall. You don't control anything. You're photographing what exists in front of you and just capturing it. And you can't pose anything, you can't change the lighting, you can't stop someone from moving. You're just shooting what naturally exists in front of you with whatever lighting is provided for you. So that's kind of like pressing pause on what exists in front of you. That to me is much more easy than I have to build lights. I have to figure out the way I'm going to light this to that works with the band. I have to pose the band. I have to make sure they're like good on the photos and they like what we're getting, and you're controlling every single aspect of it. So I find that to be a little bit, especially when you're on a time crunch. When you're in a concert, like it's usually first three songs, which is the standard rule for concerts. You know exactly what you're going into, what you're getting. When I have a photo shoot with a band like Inferno, for example, I had 3 to 5 minutes per band to do shoots, and that's not a lot of time to nail what
I
you
say
need to
that's not a
nail.
lot of time at all.
Mm-mm. But like at a festival, they have so much stuff to do. They have to get ready, prep, meet and greets, whatever they have to do. Even at like regular concerts, there's a lot they have to do. So you have to learn to work very quickly, efficiently, get them in and out, get what you need in less time than you know they give you usually. So like for example, the Behemoth shoot was something like 2 minutes, and I've done 30-second photo shoots with that band before. Because a lot of bands who wear stage clothes, makeup, all that kind of stuff, they're not going to get into it hours before they're supposed to. They're going to get into it maybe a little bit early, and then you have to do that shoot when they're ready, and that's directly before stage, and then they got to get on stage. I've done photo shoots with Behemoth where we're shooting and their intro music starts and they run. So, you have to get used to shooting very quickly and efficiently, which again is another element of doing a photo shoot that makes it difficult because you don't have all the time in the world and you don't have the length of 3 songs to get it done sometimes.
For you now, because you're very established in what you do, like I said, in my opinion, you're the best in the business, really. I cannot think of anybody better than you at what you do. When I see a photo, I immediately know it's yours because the quality jumps out, and you're able to really capture not only the image, but the essence of the band through the image. How much of that was taught to you, and how much of that do you feel is just intrinsic, like you just have it in you?
I think, well, first off, there's a lot of photographers better than me. There's a lot of talent out there. Um, I'm like that humble dude who's not like, yeah, I'm the greatest. I'm never gonna be that guy, but um,
Actually, I thought you were going to be that guy before I met you. Because I'm like,
no,
this guy is
I'll
so
never be that
good.
guy.
He's going to walk up, pinkies up, drinking Earl Grey, and he's not going to give a shit about anybody. And you're like one of the most humble guys I've ever met in my life. I just got to say that to everybody who hasn't had the pleasure of meeting you yet.
That's the way to be. I don't think I'm above anybody else. If I'm in a photo pit, I'm on the same level as everybody next to me because we're all shooting for different reasons and getting something for, you know, all sorts of different stuff. Never be above anybody else around you. We're all peers. Um, Another question. Sorry, remind me what the question was.
No, the question was in terms of when
Oh
you're
yeah, yeah,
shooting.
yeah, yeah. Getting the essence of the band and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think once you've been doing hundreds of shoots a year for 20 years, if you're not at a level where you can bring something out of it, you need to like reassess for sure. But being a fan of the band definitely helps. And they say never be a fan, but like we're all in this industry, everyone who's working in this industry mostly because we're fans, right? That's why you got into it. That's why I got into it. Um, so it's easy for me to photograph a band that I know well. I know their music, I know their personality, and I can try to bring that out as opposed to being in front of a band I don't know well, but I always do my research. When I have a photo shoot with a band I don't know, I'll look them up, check them out, check out their music videos, check out their aesthetics, see how they look, try to find some interviews or something to kind of get an idea of what they're about and how to get something good out of them in a photo shoot. But then you have people like Abbott, for example. If you get Abbott in front of your lens, you're going to get 27 different Abbotts in 27 different frames, and it's amazing. You don't have to do anything. He just owns it. He's so good. He's amazing. But then you get people who just stand there very stoically, and that's where like direction comes in. There are people who are really good at finding the light, finding their pose, finding where they need to be, and there's people that aren't. And it's very important to be like, okay, you chin up, turn your face this way, you a little step to your left, you do that, being very directive, which I am, which I get a lot of feedback on. A lot of photographers apparently either go up to them and touch them, which is not okay. Don't ever touch your subjects without asking first. And even then, no. Um, but there's a lot who just do this and don't even talk to the band. They just start taking pictures and the band's like, okay. And I saw some photographers, at different festivals doing that kind of stuff without like talking to the band. They just step up and start taking photos. And that's weird to me, you know?
I agree with you. That sounds really strange and weird. How much, when it comes to a photo shoot, do bands come to you, to your own studio, or do you travel to where the bands are playing to work with them at maybe at the venue?
I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm usually bringing my studio to a venue. That's usually what I do, because it's very difficult for a band to get from wherever they are, whatever venue they're at, to my studio unless they're an off date. Every now and again, it works out that there's an off date and we either get a rental studio somewhere or whatever else, especially if it's a big shoot. Like when I do those album shoots or like big magazine shoots, they figure out where they have an off date and I'll fly there and we'll rent a studio or we'll find a space and do it, something like that. Um, but mostly it's me setting up in a venue, doing a photo shoot before doors open, breaking down, and 5 times out of 10 leaving right then and there.
You don't, you have such a busy life. I mean, I saw you running around Inferno. You were doing so much stuff there. You had your own panel. You talked about your career. You talked about what you do. How was the experience for you at Inferno this year?
So it was my first time in Europe, which was really exciting. For me, in terms of logistics, I'm a very I like things to be planned out and I know exactly what time everything is happening and have a schedule. Like at 7 o'clock, the band will be in front of you from 7 to 7:05. Then this band will be here from 7:15 to 7:20. And then this, having every single thing written down. I have my schedule. This is what we're doing. That did not happen at all. It was kind of like, all right, we're going to get there and see when we can do it, which is fine. That happens a lot, especially like when I do Warp Tour shoots or Mayhem Fest or Ozfest or any of those kind of things. I get festivals can be hectic, so it's always kind of ebbing and flowing. It was good that we were able to find a space that was right next to backstage in order to make the shoots happen. Some venues are better for photo shoots than others, and festivals are always the most difficult because there's very little space because there's so many bands. I thought Inferno Fest was the best run festival I've ever been at. Everything was on time. The second that minute hand hit where the band was supposed to be on, they were on. As soon as that minute hand hit that the band was supposed to be off, they were off. It was like clockwork how good it worked. So that was very easy to figure out when a lot of the bands, which was weird to me, wanted to shoot after their set. Which for a band wearing corpse paint, it's like, oh, so everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna be a little runny. It's gonna be a little, not perfect, but like half the bands wanted to shoot after their set rather than during, which I guess that was easier for them because of the schedule of the show. Um, and there wasn't a lot of space, but we made it happen. But being that the schedule was, so succinct, I was able to know exactly when to be backstage to grab the band, to bring them the set, to do the photo shoot and bring them back and, knock it out quickly and efficiently so they can go on about their day.
When you have
But yeah,
that
the
busy
festival was
schedule,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. When you have that busy schedule, did you get to enjoy the festival, or you feel like, man, I almost wish I was there just as a fan because it was a lot of work.
Yeah, so if you give me a band I really, really like, right? And I have the choice between doing a photo shoot or watching their set, and I've never done a photo shoot with them before, and I have to choose one, I'm gonna do the photo shoot because that means more to me sometimes than seeing the band live when I could maybe watch them online or see them at another time. I did get to see almost all of the bands I wanted to see. There was only one band I missed because they were downstairs and it was impossible to get down there because there's just so many people.
Which
This
one?
band, a they're a band I've listened to since I was like 15 years old. I love that band. Like, holy shit, like their albums are incredible. So the odd thing that happened was Tara and I have a friend that works at the local venue, the Palladium, and he went on tour with another band who went on tour with the Tyrannus, and I was like, dude, I'm so jealous you're getting to tour with this band that I absolutely have loved for years. And I have photos of me in high school wearing the Tyrannus shirts, like stuff like that. And then 2 weeks later, I get booked on Inferno Fest and booked the shoot with the Tyrannus, and I'm just so we got to do two photo shoots with them actually in stage clothes and in street clothes, which is pretty cool. So it was great getting to work with them, and I did get to hear some of the set, but I didn't get to see the set, unfortunately, because
Hey,
sometimes when a band is on, I have to shoot another band at that time, and that's what happened.
at least you got to do the photo shoot, so that's cool, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I shot most of the bands on main stage and like three or four bands that were on the John D stage.
Wow, that is really cool, man. They were showing for those that didn't attend. There was also Inferno Music Conference, which happens for the first 2 days of the festival in the morning. Like I said, you were on a panel, a career talk panel about your career, photography, all of that stuff, and there was a big what do you call it, projector screen showing some of your photos and stuff. The one that caught my eye was the one from Avatar. I thought it was just like really, it's such a powerful image. It's such a cool picture. Was it hard for you to put together a compilation of photos to display there? Because you have so much.
It was kind of tricky because I have a lot of different types of work that I do. Because I shoot bands that if you showed a black metal fan, they would try to burn it. You know, you throw My Chemical Romance up on the screen and, that hotel might burn down. Um, so I had to kind of figure out what bands not to include and what bands to include and kind of make it more metal centric rather than putting hardcore in there or screamo or any of that kind of stuff because I shoot everything. Um, and the one thing I thought was really cool is I have my project Daughters of Darkness, which of course includes nudity. It's, women in corpse paint, fine art nude, a book that came out in 2020. And I was like, can I show this? Is this allowed? Can I bring, books to show people? Is that okay? And they're like, dude, it's Norway. Like the statues out here are nude. They don't care. It's not a thing. And it's really not. It was such a culture shock to walk around the sculpture garden and see like how open Norway is with, you know, body shapes, body sizes, bodies in general. And it's just like, oh, this is refreshing that as some things can be really closed-minded, they're very open-minded about that. Whereas if you had that in the US, the certain people would just be like, "Oh, you're corrupting our youth. You're making them this way, you're making them that way." And it's like, "Oh my God, take me back to Norway, please."
I agree with you,
So
man.
it was cool getting to show that. And in terms of the shots, it was really cool going through because like if you look at your photos in a very small timeline, they're pretty similar. There's not a lot of variety because you're doing what the band wants you to do or what the magazine wants you to do. And you get bummed out and you're like, oh, dude, my work sucks. And you always have that kind of in the back of your head, my work sucks. I need to be better. My work sucks. I need to be better. But then when you look at 20 years of photos, there's so much variety. There's so many bands you've worked with. You're like, I'm all right, I guess. All right. I don't suck completely sometimes.
Do you ever look back at some older stuff, some stuff you did earlier on, and be like, man, I could have done that a little bit better, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that I shot the things I shot when I shot it with the skills, lights, and cameras and lenses that I shot it with, because it has that specific look that if I shot it now, it wouldn't look like that. So I'm glad that I have different eras in my work essentially based on how I was shooting. Um, there's a lot of things I'm shooting now I want to get away from, and I always want to kind of improve. I try to learn something, some sort of different skill, be it editing, be it lighting, be it camera, whatever, every month to try to get something new in terms of what I'm doing. But that's where it goes back to like you have 3 minutes with the band. Good luck. And you don't have time to experiment. You don't have time to like, wait, will this work? Will this look cool? Um, but like as soon as I got back, I had a photo shoot with Machine Head like 2 days ago, and I did something a little different that I hadn't done before, and it looks awesome. And it comes out in June, and I'm really stoked about it because anytime I do something different that I haven't done before and it looks really cool, I get really stoked. So being able to get that variety is awesome. There's certainly photos I've shot back in the day where I look at it and I cringe because I'm like, oh, this is so bad. This was such a bad idea. The concept's horrible or the lighting's horrible or whatever. But every artist is like that. Everyone's like that. They look back at their work and they either can appreciate it or they cringe. Just look at it as something that built the foundation of your art that you're building on, you know?
Funny enough, you mentioned Machine Head. I'm actually going to go see them today after we finish talking. I'm heading out to go see them in Toronto. Crazy lineup of bands, to be honest.
hmm Lacuna Coil are very, very, very close friends. I did a photo shoot with Christina 2 days ago as well. Um, my first photo shoot I ever did in my entire career was Lacuna Coil. And so they've been friends for over 20 years. She put a book out actually, and I just shot the cover of that as well. And they're just the best people ever. So anytime we get to cross paths, they're awesome. If you get to see them, tell them I say hello. And Machine Head's always awesome to work with. That show is so good. Like In Flames, Unearth, which are my hometown boys. Uh, yeah, Lacuna and Machine Head just so good.
Yeah,
What a
it's a
lineup.
it definitely is a killer show. From a photography standpoint, I have a lot of friends who do photography here in Toronto, mostly obviously concert photography. Is there any hints or I shouldn't say hints, any tips that you would give an aspiring photographer, especially concert photography, on how to improve their material?
Absolutely. Shoot as much as you can. Always shoot the opening bands. I see some photographers who are like, I don't know who they are. I'm not going to shoot them. Always shoot the opening bands. Um, for multiple reasons. The first time I shot My Chemical Romance, they were an opening band. Do you know how important those photos are now? When I shot Avenged Sevenfold the first time, opening band, no one knew who they were. very important photos to have. And same thing with the metal world. There's a lot of metal bands I shot on their first tours over in the US, and now they're massive. So always shoot the opening band, shoot as much as you can, learn new things, try to get shots of the drummer, and just shoot in as many different venues as you can and challenge yourself because lighting is different depending on what venue you're shooting at. Sometimes it's awful and sometimes it's good. Um, just shooting as much as you can, basically.
For live photography, is there any valid reason to do, for example, black and white?
I mean, aesthetically, you can do whatever you want. In terms of you need to do black and white, there's a lot of shows that are lit very, very poorly with one color. So if you have a full wash that's blue, green, or red, you have to do some post-processing to make it look like it's not a Smurf, the Hulk, or the Devil. You have to do something with it to make it not awful. And a lot of people's easy fix is black and white done, adjust the contrast. And what I would say a tip for that, if you're going to do a black and white edit, start off by making it black and white and then edit from there rather than just pressing a button because contrasts are different with colors. So definitely edit a black and white image rather than editing it in color and then making it black and white. Um, I do like the black and white aesthetic, but I like color. Anytime I do a black and white, I usually have both options. I never shoot specifically black and white unless I'm shooting black and white film, which I do. I shoot a lot of film. But yeah, there's always an aesthetic for black and white. There's something more artsy to it, there's something more, this isn't just photojournalism or editorial images. This is something more, which is kind of cool. It goes back to a time that existed that doesn't exist as much anymore.
Can an average photographer be a better photographer based on what they do post?
No, I don't think post or editing makes you a better photographer. I think it makes you a better editor. It makes you better at digital manipulation and digital editing and all that kind of stuff, which is important. It's an important part of being a photographer. However, there are photographers that don't edit their photos or they send out to someone else to edit. Um, I'm kind of in the middle. I loathe editing. It's my least favorite part of anything I do. I hate it. But I know it's a necessary evil, especially when you're doing portraiture, especially when you're shooting people who really care about the way they look. Thankfully, if you wear corpse paint, there's not much editing to do. Please give me all the black metal bands to shoot. Makes life easy. Or guar. There's no editing there. They're guar. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a skill you'll probably need unless you're shooting, photojournalistic kind of stuff where you're shooting editorial or newspaper, that kind of stuff. But I'm seeing people who shoot concerts do these intense edits where they're spending, so much time on a single photo. And it's just like, man, I don't have the time to do that. But good on you. You got more energy than I do. I'm too old for that shit, man. I need way more monster to exist in that kind of capacity.
You need a monster intravenous and to be able to pull that shit off.
Hmm.
Because to me, I see a lot of that happening, and I was just wondering how much of a role the editing, the post-production, cleaning things up, how important is that for you as a photographer? Do you ever release material with very little to none?
Yeah, my live photography. I don't really edit my live photography. I sometimes color grade, and then do a couple sliders, and that's it. I'm not gonna edit something out for an image. If an image has like something in the way or something that looks bad, I'll just delete. I don't want to spend that much time going through hundreds of photos and edit. I just don't have the time to do it. Because like people who shoot concerts maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, they have that time. I'm starting May 1st and ending June 30th, I do not have a day where I don't have a photo shoot. And I have to edit in between that. So it's like, I don't got the time, man. Editing has to be a quick thing for me, or photos aren't going to get done and in. And I know it's a self-perpetuating thing where I'm giving myself too much work, but I prefer that. I prefer to always be busy and doing something. So like having no days off for 2 months is fine with me because I'll catch up eventually one day in 100 years.
You'll rest when you're dead. Long from now. There'll be plenty of time for you to rest then. Now there's no rest for the wicked. When it comes to the cameras, what role does a good camera versus an average camera? How would like let's say I want to get into photography and concert photography.
Mhm.
What would be a good starting point for me?
If you're shooting concerts specifically, I would say the lens is more important than the camera. You want a lens that can shoot as open as possible because of low light. Because concerts are not usually very bright unless you're shooting in an arena. Like if you're shooting Ghost in an arena, you have all the lighting you need. If you're shooting, a black metal band in a small stage in a little club, there's not much lighting. So having a lens that's 2.8 or even more open than that is very important. In terms of the body, having something that can do high ISO without a lot of grain is important. So a lower megapixel camera is better for low light, whereas a higher megapixel camera is better for when there's a lot of light. So I have a different camera for shooting live than portraiture. And then that also goes to usage, like where are these photos going to appear? Live photos might be blown up to poster size, probably not bigger than that, whereas my photo shoots can be billboards, they can be anything like that. So it's really important that I have the high megapixel for that. A lot of photographers and other people will say, it's not the camera, it's the artist behind the camera, and that's half true. You need a camera that can do what you need it to do. You need a camera good enough to get the photos you need to get. If you don't have a camera that can do that, you're not going to complete the job. You're not going to get what you want. You're not going to get what the client wants. You're not going to get what you need. So while in some ways it doesn't matter what camera and lens you have and any is good to shoot with, you do need to make sure you have something that's good enough for the job you need to complete, for sure.
You mentioned earlier you went to school for photography. We live in
Mhm.
an era where people can just go to YouTube and do some research on some videos on proper settings and that kind of stuff. Do you still see value in going to a school and follow the proper protocol, for lack of a better term, to get to where, for example, where you are today?
For me, I learn better at the time. I learned better in that kind of environment than I would have in YouTube. But that said, like in 2003 when I went, YouTube wasn't what it is now. However, when you're on YouTube, you can get bad information. You can have someone giving you the completely wrong information on certain ways to do things. And you can say there's no wrong way to art, which is true, but there are technically wrong ways to do things that will make your images worse rather than better. So YouTube is kind of like, as long as you're following the right creators and learning what you want to learn, awesome. But I will say this in terms of traditional education with photography. The five major photo schools are all gone. They all closed. The school I went to is gone. Brooks is gone. NASOP is gone. A lot of the big photo schools that were specifically photography schools, they don't exist anymore. So you don't have those. That's not an option unless you can find that. I don't know if that exists in Canada. I don't know where that exists in the US right now. But there are so many great places to learn. I do a lot of workshops and seminars, but so many other photographers do. There's PPA, the Professional Photographers of America. They always have, events. There's Imaging USA, there's Shutterfest, there is WPPI. There's all of these events that are conventions where there's a lot of, kind of like Inferno Fest, but for photographers.
Mhm.
So like constant workshops, keynote speakers, that kind of stuff. There's always places to learn and always places to improve. And it's awesome to do those things. And I love teaching, so I love doing those workshops and stuff like that. So if you're looking to learn a specific thing, find a photographer who does that and teaches that and learn as much as you can, for sure.
But would you ever consider having a young Padawan, having like a little apprentice working with you? Is that something you've done or something you would consider?
In the past, I've had a lot of young photographers assist me on shoots to kind of learn how I do what I do. I do seminars where they want like fly on the wall, kind of watch how I do a photo shoot. That exists. But at this time, it's really difficult to like get an extra pass or an extra ticket for some extra person who's just there to kind of witness what you're doing unless it's a predetermined thing. Um, I've had so many different assistants over the years, but for the last like 7 years or so, Tara has been my assistant for everything, and I don't really need anyone else with me to do anything. Sometimes I'll have a third assistant on hand, but they're very rarely a photographer. It's just someone who can carry heavy stuff, help her with setup and whatnot. Because like whenever I have a third assistant, I'm like, Tara, they don't work for me, they work for you. Tell them what to do. You run the show. Um,
And
yeah,
she does a magnificent job, and she has a hairstyle and a hair color that makes me absolutely jealous. As you can tell, I
same,
would never be able to
same.
pull it off. So her hair is magnificent, like it blew me away. And she did a magnificent job in the fashion show as well that happened at Inferno. That was a lot of fun. How was that for you? Like that was a little bit different having a metal fashion show. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
I have because I do like Rock and Shock and all these horror conventions where they have horror fashion shows and stuff like that. So it was very cool. And it was awesome for Tara to get to walk because, she walks with a cane and she doesn't always have those opportunities. And we're usually super busy doing 1,000 things. So it was great that she got to do it. I know she was very stoked on it. And we had a lot of friends in that show, which was very cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. One last thing I want to touch upon is your book. I know you're
Sure.
working on a new one.
Mhm.
Do you have a timeline on when you think the new one will be out?
It's kind of done. Like the photos are done because it's just past photos, but it's also the stories behind the shoots and the photos that people haven't seen. I'm kind of reworking it a little bit. It's going into the publisher. It's pretty much all set. In terms of when it's going to come out, it's going to be up to the publisher. Um, Once everything's finally handed in and finalized, which should be in the next couple weeks, I should know, but I'm hoping for either end of year or early next year. And it's all music photography. It's all bands and whatnot from the past 20 something years of being a photographer.
But now you have a reason to come back to Inferno next year and have the book there, maybe do a book signing.
I would love to. I know they're talking about doing a book thing there, so like hopefully, and I'm in talks with Inferno about some other stuff, so hopefully all of that comes to fruition because I'd love to go again.
Listen, I'm going next year. I for me this is a regular thing. When it comes to Easter, my Easter is in Oslo. I just love the crew there. Everybody's super nice. It's such a great time because it really feels like a family there. So
Hmm.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I see you there again, see you and Tara there again in 2026. Hopefully doing that book thing. I definitely would love to buy one and have you sign it for me. I love your work. I
Thank
cannot
you.
express how much I love your work. I've been a fan of your work, and I was like, I was afraid of meeting you because I was afraid that the person would not match the pictures, if you will. They always tell you not to meet your idols. So, you're a great guy, one of the best person. Like, you have a great soul. You're a great dude, man. I honestly, I really love you. You do a phenomenal job. And next year, I'm planning on being on that fashion show, by the way. So I need you to take a good
Hell
picture
yeah,
of me.
absolutely. And you're too kind. Thank you so, so much.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're super busy. I'm glad that you found a way of squeezing me in. Thank you very much, Jeremy. It's a pleasure. Continue to do you, and I'm sure we'll see each other at some point somewhere, if at the very worst case scenario, next year at Inferno.
Absolutely. You got to come to the States and come to some shows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely need to do that, and I need to also have some monsters ready for you at Inferno next year.
Hell yeah. The strawberry sugar free is my
Yeah,
jam.
I got a fridge at home filled with my son gets them for free at work. He works for Live
Oh
Nation.
my God, that's awesome.
So I think I'm gonna have a checked in luggage just for you. I'm gonna bring it just for you. So I'll have those in hand.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, man.